Hiya. Hi.
Hello.
Hey. Hi, Rosa.
Good morning, Izzy. So cool to see you.
And you. Yeah, hi everyone. So a few more coming in. Yeah, so good evening, good morning, afternoon, wherever you might be. Well, short and sweet as always. This is everything. Just arrange that. Okay, so yeah, there is no meeting. There is no message, of course, no actual message. What is being suggested, one could say, is that what appears to be happening, so an apparent Zoom call with Izzy on a Wednesday, is just all there is. And there is, of course, nothing else. So what is, one could say, an apparent Zoom call with Izzy on a Wednesday? An apparent body sitting, breathing, listening, maybe asking a question or talking, is just naturally whole and complete. So it can't possibly, so to speak, become more whole and complete, nor can it become less whole and complete. No, of course not. It's already whole and complete naturally, one could say. So, of course, in itself, this is not a message. As I say, there is no message. Just the apparent suggestion, one could say, seems to come more as a response, one could say. A response to an apparent experience, a so-called experience, to use that word, that I am me. Well, of course, that I am in the first place, whether it's me, know me, awareness, happiness, whatever. This apparent illusion is the first I am, one could say, that I am. So, as I say, whether that is I am me, this is me, I am X years old, I am sitting on Zoom, or whether this is something more so-called spiritual or magical. I am awareness, I am the empty space within which everything appears, I am God, whatever. Yeah, they're the same, of course, the same apparent illusion of I am. So yeah, of course, this suggestion, one could say, is that this is just not happening. There is no me, of course, whether that's this personal sense or this so-called spiritual universal sense. It's the same so-called sense of location, that I am listening to Izzy right now. So of course, there is nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with anything. But the suggestion one could say is that this is just what appears to be happening, in that there just seems to be a body saying, I am me, or whatever. But of course, there is no me. So this is an apparent illusion, but there is no actual illusion. So nothing can collapse, nothing can die, and nothing can fall away. What appears to be happening is already whole and complete for no one. Already. Okay, well, I think that's probably it from me. For now, anyway. So yeah, as always, anyone is welcome to unmute themselves and yeah, just have a chat or ask a question. There is, of course, no right or wrong, so everything is welcome. So yeah, let's see what happens today. Hiya, you can unmute yourself if you like.
Hi, Izzy. I just started seeing listening to your videos about a week ago. I guess, I mean, I know that there's no way to grasp this or to grasp or hold or almost like create a form of some sort. But I mean, I could just be quiet and mute myself again, and just something that keeps reverbing is the use of the word apparent. So, apparent, be two parents. So seriously, apparent, it assumes something coming into appearance or existence and something not, and then leaving. It's like apparent is almost another way for saying temporary or unreal. As you know, it's a dual kind of word, apparent. It's saying this, but not that. So when you use the word apparent, I mean, where is that coming from? I mean, what is it that you are pointing to, or not you, but this, or whatever, however. Okay, thank you.
Well, of course, nothing. So this is not pointing to anything, of course. There isn't even anything being actually suggested in that sense, of course. So yeah, nothing is being pointed to or anything that could be illuminated or that stands out that could even be pointed to in this way. So of course, what the apparent suggestion, to use that word, is that this is everything. What appears to be happening is everything. And so, of course, there's nothing to point to. But yeah, I mean, this word, obviously, I mean, in the English language, apparent, actually seems to mean obvious in this sense. If something's apparent, it can be said to be obvious. But of course, this is just semantics. But when I mean this word apparently, like you say, just seems to suggest and not that what appears to happen is exclusively unreal. Of course, it is neither unreal nor is it real. So it's not one or the other. So yeah, one could say this word apparently seems to suggest that what appears to be happening, an apparent Zoom call with Izzy, of course, just can't be said to be happening or not happening for sure. So hence it's just what's apparently happening, which I guess is the same as saying it's just what appears to be happening or what seems to be happening.
Maybe that's the sense in which people talking about this for thousands of years have used the term illusion, like it's an illusion. It's almost like a magic trick. It's here, it's not here. It's
Yeah, I mean, well, in one sense, in that what appears to be happening is, as I say, neither real nor is it unreal. But I mean, I wouldn't, of course, this is just language, but I wouldn't usually say that what appears to be happening is an illusion, because there's nothing illusory about an apparent Zoom call. It's just what appears to be happening. So there's no illusion in that. The seeming so-called illusion where the word illusion seems to come in is with this so-called experience, let's say, that I am on this Zoom call, which then tends to be said to be this so-called illusion or this so-called dream. But of course, there's not an actual illusion.
Is there an actual dream when a dream is happening? Or is it the same as the waking state?
Well, in terms of sort of the night dream or whatever, I mean, this again, one could say is just what appears to be happening, of course, to no one. So just totally normal, dreaming, going to sleep, seeming to go to sleep, an apparent body going to sleep, an apparent body having a night dream, an apparent body then seeming to wake up, so to speak, and function in the day and then go to sleep again or whatever, is just what seems to be happening. But this so-called dream of the person seems to be this illusory sense that it's me that is going to sleep. It's me that's dreaming at night. It's me that's waking up.
May I ask, does dreamless sleep, unconscious dreamless sleep, does that occur to the Izzy form or whatever?
Oh, as sort of deep sleep in this sense. Oh, well, yeah, of course, I guess. Totally natural. Just an apparent body seems to go to sleep, seems to have dreams, seems to wake up. I mean, of course, to the so-called person, this sort of deep sleep, where of course this seems to be this special place where there is no one. And that then I wake up and then, oh, this deep sleep there is no one in that. I mean, of course, yes, but there's of course also no one at all. So this no one is not just reserved for deep sleep, so to speak.
That seems very funny to you. Okay, it's since I've got the mic. You talk about what is reality. You know, as apparent, and then there's reality.
Well, there is no reality. So, I mean, what appears to be happening is all there is. And it's just what appears to be happening. So there's no sort of of course, there's not what's being suggested here and then some other reality, or also in the same sense, what is being suggested is not pointing to some hidden or deeper reality than quite simply just me and you, so to speak, two apparent bodies having a seeming conversation on Zoom is just what appears to be happening.
So is what appears reality?
Well, I mean, what appears to be happening is, of course, just what appears to be happening. So, I mean, the words in this sense just really, of course, don't matter because it's totally indescribable. So, yeah, if one wanted to refer to this as reality, then, I mean, why not in that sense? If one wanted to call it God, why not? But of course, these terms seem to have a lot of so-called connotations. I mean, reality sort of seems to in itself suggest that it is real or it is a reality, which of course it isn't, nor is it unreal.
Yeah, a lot of this is not unlike high level astrocosmology or quantum physics. It's very analogous to, you know, to the incomprehensible conditions that seem to exist or not exist.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what appears to be happening, yeah, as you say, is totally incomprehensible, totally inconceivable, totally indescribable, not possible to experience or any of these things in that sense. But yeah, of course, this so-called quantum physics or these sorts of so-called theories seem just to be that in that sense, just seem to be these theories. But of course, what is being suggested is not another theory. There is actually no one in that sense. And what appears to be happening is nothing, being everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Lovely to chat with you. Hi, Barbara. And feel free, unmute yourself.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to follow through kind of both what this guy's, or at least what I was understanding him talking about, but also following up with my question that I think I posed it to you before. And I keep trying to unpack layers of it so I understand. Okay, so for me, I keep thinking about this girl, Louise or something. The last time she was apparently annoyed that I talked too long. So I'm trying to be succinct if I can. So for here, there's a movement, noticing movement. And then because I keep noticing movement, something wants to almost say or commune or share movement. And my sense of this need or this arising in here that wants to share it or name it or understand it, put it in a context. There's just sort of a movement in the life force here is just to respond, like saying movement. To me, there's like, that's what creates the contraction that becomes an I, a me. Just to have sort of like a way to share or commune or make sense out of. I don't know if I'm saying enough, but is that making sense to you, what I'm saying?
Oh, well, I mean, in one way, of course not, but I see what the question is asking. Yeah. Well, I mean, one could say in this sense that this just seems to be the setup of the person, so to speak, to try to make sense of, or try to communicate how I feel, or what I am going through, or what I am aware of, or whatever. The so-called experience of the person seems to just be, well, seems to be the person's task almost, to try to navigate one's life and work it out, like it's some sort of problem that needs to be solved, and there needs to be clarity before I can move forward, or before I can become liberated, or before I can fall away, or whatever.
Can I interrupt a little bit, because I feel like we're at least communicating on some level, because before those questions, it's still it's still what's happening. There's a sort of a response to noticing, and then there's an energy that wants to go either yippee, fun, what's next. I mean, all those words are not really true, but I'm just trying to commune. So all I know is it at first is just noticing, and then something arises that wants to something wants to respond or have some almost like, oh, that's an inhale and this is an exhale. Like there's just some sort of response to the noticing here, that there is a I don't know if it's a reflection or reaction, but it feels like trying to make something out of it in the mind is like way down the line. But the first, if it's it's like a water on a seed, it starts to sprout, or there's a reaction to the seed from water and sun. There's a reaction, right? It just does.
Well, I mean, as a response, what this sounds like, so to speak, is this sort of thing with awareness, one could say. So the so-called experience, let's say, that all there is awareness, or that awareness is the first thing, like you say. The noticing is the initial thing, or whatever. So of course, I mean, in one sense, the so-called person seems to be able to, let's say, strip everything back, let's say, and just notice the noticing, so to speak, or become the noticing even. I mean, this never really happened to me that much, but I read a lot about it, and I know that there was a lot of so-called teachers that would teach from this place of awareness or whatever. So of course there is no awareness. So one could say that this so-called thing, where the so-called person seems to be aware of awareness or become awareness or whatever, one could say just seems to be the so-called person discovering, let's say, or stripping back to the root, let's say, of its personhood.
Exactly.
Exactly, but this, of course, is a personhood that doesn't exist.
Yes, but in some ways, if I'm unpacking, if I am making, if I'm, I don't even know what the words is. So to even then realize, oh, that the noticing, for lack of a better word, noticing, is what's happening. That,
Well,
you know, I'm not, the me isn't doing it, but that is the beginning of the noticing here, the spark of something. And so even if it's always been going on and it wasn't me that has anything to do with it, at least it's another, maybe getting a little bit out of the maze and just being able to say, okay, there's nothing there. That wasn't ever happening me, or there is no me, just noticing.
Well,
Noticing another element.
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, this is the thing, I guess. So like I said in the introduction, this so-called thing, I mean, I hear what you're saying in this sense. So, and like you say, the so-called me then seems to I recognize, one could say, this awareness or whatever, this so-called awareness, and then seems to say, okay, there is no me, but all there is this so-called awareness, or this awareness as it feels to the so-called person. So then it sort of seems to, as you say, feel this awareness as maybe another thing, an emptiness or a silence or whatever, and that then there's the artificial me that's been seen through or whatever. But of course, this just is the same illusory me, so to speak. So there's just no difference between the apparent person saying, I am me, I am Barbara, or whatever, and then the apparent person saying, I am not the me, but I am the awareness, or all there is the awareness. It's the same so-called thing. So yeah, I mean, this awareness, this initial noticing, so to speak, as the so-called me seems to put it, is the same illusory thing.
I see.
Yeah, so there just is no yeah, I mean, of course, to the so-called person, it may feel like a step towards apparent liberation or whatever. But of course, there is no liberation. So yeah, of course, there's no steps towards it.
Thank you, Izzy.
Thank you, Barbara. And yeah, apologies once again for the interruption. Hi, Brandon. I'll just unmute you. Or you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, Izzy, how are you?
Hiya, yeah, well.
From over here, there seem to be a lot of questions the busier this person is. And whenever there's stillness, the apparent questions seemingly fall away. I'm noticing no one has much to say here, and nor do I.
Yeah.
It's difficult to even articulate what I'm thinking now about how there aren't any questions. But the person is still compelled to attend Zoom meetings and things where there are an apparent teacher that is apparently answering questions.
Well, teacher, yeah.
Sure.
That was very generous.
I enjoy listening either way.
Thank you.
Did that seem to be the case in Izzy's story as well?
Yeah, one could say so. There seemed to be, I mean, as it's so-called, to use the word obvious, I mean, as this so-called, it just became clear, one could say, that there were, of course, no questions. But this was only sort of clear at this point from a theoretical point of view, an intellectual point of view, at least.
Yes.
But of course, yeah, I mean, yeah, I still quite liked to just listen, one could say, to Andreas mainly. I just found it very comforting in this sense. And actually towards the end, so to speak, I mean, yeah, as a story, the questions just, I mean, maybe would come up in you know, so-called whatever as thoughts, but and maybe a few topics or whatever would be triggering in this sense, trigger quite a few questions, or the old
Yes.
sort of trying to work it out or whatever. But yeah, I mean, by this point, it just seemed more comfortable just sort of listening to this as background noise almost.
Yes.
It's kind of like the
Yes.
radio. There was just something a bit comforting about it.
Mhm. It seems the seeking energy, although it's slowing down, is still present over here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, which which of course there's just nothing wrong with, and there's just already no one doing this. So this apparent collapse of the so-called person, which obviously never happens, this so-called seeking may just slow down or relax. But of course, maybe not. There's already no one in charge of that, so to speak.
What, I guess, what is the experience on your side of talking about this, or wanting to, or being compelled to? I guess like this person's trying to understand that.
Oh, well, well, of course, there is no experience. So, I mean, already this question, so to speak, is a non-starter, one could say. Well, like all so-called questions. But in this sense that there is just no experience. So this illusory setup of experience just seems to totally have collapsed, or has totally collapsed, apparently. So yeah, I mean, there just seems to be a body that just seems to set up these Zoom calls.
That's all I have. Thank you so much, Izzy.
Oh, lovely to chat with you.
You too.
Hello, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yeah, to what Brandon, what you just said to Brandon, that's also something that percolates here a lot. That there's no experience. Does that, can you say more about it? Like, is there imagery? Is there no imagery? Is there, I mean, like, what is everything just speeding right through? Is it, I mean, like, is there a visual that goes along with no experience? Is there auditory? I mean, what is that?
Oh, well, I mean, of course, no experience, so to speak, is just already what appears to be happening. So there's of course nothing magical or mystical about it. So there's just a so-called body sitting on a chair, breathing, asking a question, Izzy responding, apparently responding. There just is already no experience in that.
Yeah, that's what I get confused, because I hear you say that a lot. So what is the word experience? Does it mean no history to it? Is that, what, when you use the word experience, what are you referring to?
Well, I guess I mean, of course, nothing. So it's impossible, of course, to say that no experience is like whatever, or a description of what no experience is like, because there just is no experience. So of course, there's no one who could describe that. So this apparent experience, or this illusory sense of experience, seems to be this sense that I am on this Zoom call and that I am experiencing this Zoom call. So one could say there seems to be this trio, one could say, that seems to be set up. Of course it's not, but that there's me, there's the experience, and then there's me, the experiencer, there's the experience, and then there's what is experienced. So the Zoom call or whatever.
And then there's feeling or something, a knowingness that that trio is unreal as a trio, or is just not, doesn't exist in some way.
Oh, in every way. Yeah, of course. Yeah, in this sense. So this apparent trio, of course, I mean, just seems to only come from this one so-called illusion that there isn't even, that seems to say that I am experiencing this. So yeah, like you say, this just so-called illusory setup just seems to just totally collapse. And to be revealed, one could say, that it was never happening in the first place, that there never was an experience.
And is that a different, in quotes, experience than when deep dreamless sleep is somehow grokked or experienced or something?
Oh, well, of course, there's no difference between anything in this sense. So what appears to be happening is just what appears to be happening. So there's no difference between so-called waking and so-called deep sleep. Yeah, as I say, there's no difference in anything. There's already no one.
Is there I hate to use the word awareness because I know what it doesn't mean to you. So, I mean, is there awareness in the way, you once used to know the word awareness?
And of course not. No, there just is no awareness. So I mean, this of course seems totally
inconceivable
to the so-called person, of course, because the so-called person seems to feel that I am aware, or I am awareness, and it just is a non-negotiable in this sense. So yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, they're just, this whole awareness to begin with is illusory. And this so-called experience or so-called awareness just seems to totally collapse, and of course it's not replaced by anything. So because of course it was never there. So yeah, I mean, the so-called person would just only be able to conceive of an after. So there must be some new experience or some new awareness or something that Izzy has or is experiencing or knows or understands. But of course, seen from the person, this is death. So nothing or no one wakes up or whatever. There is no after, because there isn't even a before.
Have you seen, there's a YouTube of an English fella about my age, I think his name is Clive, who has no memory. He had some kind of brain anomaly, and he has no memory, which means every time he encounters his wife, and it's on the video on this YouTube thing, a number of them of this fella, he greets her as if he hasn't seen her for months or
Aw.
years. Oh, where have you
Aw.
been? And it's like this goes on, through the day.
Oh, well, of course, there's apparent memory, one could say. So the body, just this remembering or whatever, just seems to be a natural function of the body, which, of course, like you say in this story, can, like anything, seem to break down, like in old age or illness or whatever. Like I don't know, a broken arm, the memory can seem to falter, dementia or whatever. So yeah, I mean, of course, there may be apparent memory, I, so to speak, went on a walk this morning, I did this, that, whatever, like the body seems to remember these things. I mean, memory, well, my memory, so to speak, seems to have just, like a goldfish in this sense, because this whole thing just isn't important, of course. So, it just seems to just be a function, one could say. Someone asks, what did you have for tea last night? Oh, I had this or whatever.
Because I have projected you to be very open. Because I projected you to be very open, I'm going to say something that might sound whatever, but anyway. Is it a possibility that what has happened to you, Tony, Andreas, Matt, and everyone, is that something has shifted, that it's actually a anatomical brain kind of switch?
But maybe I've just developed dementia.
No, I'm not saying it is that.
I'm kidding.
It might be a kind of an evolutionary movement, towards an evolutionary. It's like next stage. What I'm saying is that it's actually something that's actually happening. Like, if I'm not a neuroscientist, but if would you be open to having an fMRI taken to see, so that people can learn if there's something different going on in you than others? You can think about it.
Okay.
All right.
Of course, nothing happened. So this already, one could say, would seem to come from this assumption that something happened, or that something has changed. So whether that is, like you say, neurologically, biologically, chemically, psychologically, whatever. This so-called person just can only conceive of befores and afters and things actually happening and changing. So of course, whatever. Of course, there's nothing against doing something like this as research or whatever. But of course, there would be nothing found in this sense, because, well, I don't know, there might, there just be Izzy's brain in this sense, but there's no difference. Of course not. This assumption, one could say, would seem to come from this idea that the body over there or whatever hasn't got something, or Izzy has something different that body doesn't have, and that it would show up on a brain scan maybe. But of course, the suggestion, one could say, is that there already is no one. So if there was a brain area called no one, everyone would have it or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, animals, there are a lot of animal species that have no sense of self. I mean, they
Oh,
live.
well, of course, there is no sense of self.
Right, so I mean, it's possible that it might be anatomical.
Well, I mean, there just is no one. So there just is no one, full stop. There's no animals that have a sense of self, nor is there so-called humans that have a sense of self.
Hmm.
So as I say, this nothing would be proven, so to speak, on a brain scan, because there just is no difference between anything.
Well, thank you again.
No, my pleasure. Thank you. Okay, question in the chat. What about the many deaths and sufferings in the Second World War? Hard to understand why one becomes a perpetrator and the other a victim. No, yeah, of course. And apparent sufferings and apparent horrific events, so to speak, are just what appears to be happening. So, of course, what is being suggested neither absolves nor does it encourage or whatever, or I don't know. It doesn't deny nor does it confirm. There is just what appears to be happening. So, of course, the Second World War, so to speak, didn't actually happen. Just like this Zoom call, of course, is not actually happening. Which, of course, the so-called person can seem, how, what an atrocious thing to say. But of course, like I say, there is neither, saying that just nothing ever happened. And there just is no one who is a perpetrator, nor is a victim. There just is no one. But of course, apparent suffering and apparent horrific events like the Second World War or whatever, or acts of war or violence are just what appears to be happening. Okay, another one in the chat. Hello, Izzy. I heard Eckhart Tolle say, if you're with a person in a if you're with a person in a present, I think, yeah, if you're with a person in the presence or some person who seems to have got something, you have more chance to be awake. If I am with person with no one is better. If I am with, I might understand the question. I think so. Well, I mean, of course, there does seem to be this sense, one could say, with so-called spiritual teachers or teachers of presence or whatever, that being with them can have this sort of what's that word, transmitting sort of effect, where one can feel their presence and the energy is can really have an effect on me or whatever, and I can wake up in their presence. If I go to satsang or whatever it is, it will trigger an awakening. But of course, no, there is no one and there is no awakening. So there just is no, I mean, of course, even saying there's a chance to awaken or not awaken, one could say, is of course already saying too much. This is already impossible. There is no one who could or couldn't do this. So, and yeah, of course, there is also no one who is with no one. So it's also not better, so to speak, being with Izzy or whatever. There is no Eckhart Tolle, as there is no Izzy. There is just no one. Hi, Brandon. I'll let you unmute.
Hi, Izzy. To continue on what you were saying about being around a person who is in this so-called state or understands this, there's a seeming transmission here now, as well as around other so-called teachers, as well as an opposite transmission around, say, my coworkers, for example, who have no interest in these things. There seems to be more of a pull towards personhood, but still a compulsion to speak about this in some way to anyone who is willing to listen. And I was curious what Izzy's interaction is with so-called uninitiated people to this.
Oh, well, I mean, of course, there is no message. So there just is no this that is secretly being discussed on a Zoom call or whatever. So this apparent Zoom meeting or an apparent conversation between you and I is the same so-called apparent conversation as a chat with the till person at the supermarket. There's just both what appears to be happening. And there's just also no one doing or in either or whatever. So of course there is no, there's nothing to talk about in that sense. So there's just, I mean, the so-called person, well, would seem to see this as a topic or something like this. And then seem to, well, think it could even then sort of discuss this as a thing or whatever. To friends, like you say, or see how test the waters with other people or whatever. But of course, yeah, like I say, there's just talking appears to be happening. So if it's talking about a so-called words like no one or someone or whatever, or talking about the football or the weather, it's just the same apparent talking.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, out of curiosity, of course, there's no one here, full stop. There is no one. So, of course, this one that would even want to or could sort of feel it could talk about this, or hey, have you heard about this, or do you know there's no one, or whatever, is dead. And of course, there's no one to tell or to talk to. I can't even talk to myself. Poor me. Hi, Miguel.
Hi. Yeah, it's funny and it's a bit tricky. This idea, like I'm alone. I don't, or there is no one. At the moment, I'm completely alone for 5 months in a forest, and it's a bit tricky when we talk about this. It's like, okay, there is no one. There's really no one. But there is no one, and it's a bit. Can we all talk a little bit about that? Like, or there is no one at all? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there just is no one. So of course there's I mean, this can seem lonely, one can say, for the so-called person, if there may be glimpses or whatever, and then it's obvious there's no one or whatever, but there's still this sense that I'm me. And so of course this can then seem lonely. But of course,
Yes.
then this apparent person just seems to collapse. And then, of course, there's just no one who could feel lonely. Or, yeah, there just is no one.
Okay. I can see there is no one. Thank you.
But of course, I mean, as that's totally natural. The body seems, one could say, to like to talk to people or whatever. Maybe, maybe not. Or just as again, a natural functioning of sort of being sociable. Or maybe it's just not. So yeah, there's no one, I must live in a cave or whatever. I mean, there's just, yeah, totally normal. The body might prefer to be on its own, or the body might prefer to see friends or whatever. There's no one in either. Okay, probably the last question, then we'll probably wrap up. Unless anyone has a burning question. Hi Izzy, I experience energies in the body. They don't feel contracted, but more light and vibrating everywhere. Is it possible they can stay in the body after the so-called end of separation? Well, of course, they're just, the body just seems to just have sensation, one could say, apparent sensation. Feelings, touch, whatever, just like apparent thoughts, or yeah. Pain, oh yeah, pain in the body. So there, of course, is no actual contraction, though. So I guess this question, of course, seems to already assumes that there is a contracted energy of me that then can or does or whatever suddenly explode into boundlessness. But of course, the suggestion, so to speak, sorry, just seen Neek's question. The apparent suggestion is that there is only boundlessness already. There is already just boundlessness, which is just what appears to be happening. So, of course, there is no actual contraction. There seems to be this illusory sense of contraction around the body or whatever. But yeah, this contraction cannot disappear or explode because it doesn't exist. So yeah, no energy, so to speak, can leave or stay in the body. If there seems to be a vibration or sensation in the body, that's just, of course, what appears to be happening, already to no one. I mean, of course, with these so-called glimpses, there can seem to be this so-called seeming sensation, one could say, in the body of energy being released, so to speak. Usually maybe the head or the chest or whatever. But of course, this just seems to be this apparent sensation, and it's not actually happening like everything else. And so, yeah, this of course would seem for the person like this contraction is being cleared out or whatever, and that it needs to all come out before there is no longer contraction. But of course, in the end, so to speak, it's just obvious, or it's revealed, one could say, that there just never was a contraction. So of course, it never could be released or slowly or suddenly explode. It just always is boundlessness. Thank you, Catherine. See you next time. Okay, well, one final quick question from Neek. Thanks, Neek. Burning question. What Premier League club does Izzy support? Well, football. I mean, yeah, I used to support Chelsea, but yeah, I haven't followed much lately. So don't ask a question about any players. Okay. Well, so this is whole and complete, so to speak. This is it. And so an apparent Zoom call with Izzy for an hour is just what appears to be happening. And there is no message, there is no actual meeting, there is no one. So what is just naturally whole and complete. And it's just naturally unconditional love, unconditional freedom already. So the next meetings, there won't actually be one online this Saturday because I've got a meeting in person, actually, which is exciting. So that is in a village called Hartfield, which is in the south of England, in Sussex. And it's an afternoon, 2 till 5 p.m. Everyone is of course welcome, and that's free, but donations are also welcome. And yeah, the spaces are limited because it's quite a small room, so if you'd like to come, just send me an email on my email. It's everywhere on the YouTube or whatever, and yeah, I'll add your name to the list. So yeah, no Zoom this Saturday, but there will be next Wednesday. Okay, everyone. Oh, I'll unmute you, or you can unmute yourself so you can say goodbye. Yeah, okay, take
Nice
care.
to meet you.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Izzy.
coming.
Thanks, Izzy.
Thanks,
Bye.
Izzy.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.